powiedziałem, że o drugie zaczynamy, to już. Tak. 2 minutes, please. Yes. I think so, because the transmitter couldn't get to the cabin because it was closed, so now we see we can start. Okay.
So dear friends, I hope you have enjoyed our wonderful lunch, and now we have the pleasure to listen to our president, still our president, Henrik, and he will talk and give us maybe some advice on the future of Argo. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought about this for a while because as the outgoing president, I have the freedom to say exactly as I please. But I chose to be loyal to our organization, which is a marvelous organization when you think about it. More than 50 years we have met, not me, but our colleagues in different parts of Europe, discussing what's close to our heart as professionals. And that is how it started in Borgrid and has developed from that. And I think it's a wonderful story. But during those 50 years, of course, Europe has changed, the world has changed, and it will certainly change in the future also. So we have to be aware what are the challenges and what can be done. And I will say a few words about how I see our history and our situation and our challenges, and then I hope for a few words of advice to us, to me, to all of us, and then of course that will have an impact on the board which we elect tomorrow. So that is how I think about it. Please remember that after this we go into 4 groups. Groups discussing on another level. Then we do not, it is not thought at least that we should discuss the future of AOM. Then we'll more discuss on the institutional level what will happen with our museum, what are the challenges of our museum, etc. in different themes we have divided us into. So we are talking on 2 different abstract levels now. So please follow me when we talk about our organization. Now we work very far. Okay. I think it is important to understand the roots of our organization. But as I understand it, I've been looking back in some of the books which has been produced every second year since the beginning. It was a meeting of peers, directors in Open Air Museum. First a relatively small group, and then it has grown from there. And especially since the 1980s, it has been growing vastly. For the first decades, it grew very slowly. But something happened about 1.5 decades ago, maybe 2 decades ago now. The then board and the then colleagues, why is it working by itself? Maybe I should not touch it at all. Okay, something happened. And what happened was that they wanted to broaden the number of people who could participate in our meetings, in our conferences. And that was I think it was a very wise decision, because that meant that the European perspective was visible and accessible for more than just the directors. And it was possible to move. That is about 20 years ago that was broadened. Today we are close to 100 member museums from 25 countries, and we have a little more than 150 elected fellows, and I'm doing nothing. You can see, I'm doing nothing. And that's, maybe I shouldn't even talk to the table. That's still wonderful. We have preserved, should we say, an atmosphere of an open-air museum community of peers. We have preserved that, and that has been important for all of us who have been working in the board, the current board and the boards before us. That's very important. But what I want to talk about, I'm not touching anything, is that we have some clear signs about what will happen in the future.
Imagine, Henrik, millions of people watching you now live.
Finally. It's my 10 minutes. Okay. For some years now, starting in 2002, we have been working with one sub-theme group that was on lifelong learning. Then another group was on crafts, and a third group on living collections. And slowly but surely, we can see the level of activities in these groups are growing. And they are working independently of the board. They just report to us what is going on, what's happening, what are your plans, etc. And that has been working very nicely. And now I have to do something to go forward. We'll see what happens. Okay? What I also see, and I have the good fortune to be, for the Swedish government, I'm assessing applications for some of the EU programs. And what I've seen growing during the last 6 years are the number of applications in programs such as Creative Europe and Erasmus Plus, for example, where I can see our colleagues from Open Air Museums are participating as partners and even as coordinators of these programs. So there is should we say, that is a sign of a greater collaboration between peers and colleagues from our Open Air Museums, taking our share of the money which the European system provides. And I think that's hugely important to see that the European sense of this organization is growing also on member level. That's very good. But as an organization, and that's the question here, we need to be relevant also in the future as an organization. Is it enough? Well, that is my open question to you. Is it enough that we are a community of peers meeting one another every second year and maybe participating in some of the subgroups and individually participating in collaboration projects at work? Is that what is needed? That is my question to you. I would very much like to hear, and I'm sure the board would like, and the coming board would like to hear comments and thoughts about that. I have a few reflections on that question myself. So far, the tradition in AUM's board as an organization has been that we are putting our hours into this in our free time out of work. Maybe we can do a little within our organization and pay our travel through our museums, etc. But there's no money in the organization. We haven't got a general manager who we can put to work from the board. No. And as we have no general manager, we do not have any staff at all. So we have to do everything ourselves. That's how it is today. And that is how it has been for 5 decades. So if we want to do more, we also need resources to do more. Tomorrow, this assembly will decide on introducing, in my perspective, a modest fee for membership to begin somewhere to get some little fund to do something professionally outside using our spare time. We'll see how that works tomorrow. Another thing is that, and that's maybe even more important, it would be tempting to claim that, well, it has worked for 50 years, and why should we not continue the way we have done? Well, then we forget one crucial issue. The rest of the world is not standing still. The world around us, and Europe particularly, Brexit or no Brexit, is developing, and things are happening. And well, I have a hobby which is you may consider it perverse, but my interest is to see how ideas from UNESCO drops down to OECD, the Council of Europe, the European Union, and how after 4 or 5 years we can see it in my hometown. I think that's wonderful to see how it actually works. And I can control it and see, oh, it's exactly the same in Lisbon. Whether they like it or not, we see it the same in London. I think that's quite fascinating to see that the world is actually becoming much, much, much smaller. That also means that the ideas and the ideology around the work you do becomes more and more, should we say, based on common values throughout the world, and not least in Europe. You can think that is good, you can think that is terrible, but that's how it is. And in my own country, in Denmark, there are many people who for many years have been fighting, we have to leave the European Union, and I know some of them, and I also know that they like very much when they get the cash checks from the European Commission in different projects. So the European community is growing and is stronger and stronger, and it only reflects what's happening on other levels. And if we as institutions want to benefit from that, we need to know what's going on. If we don't know what's going on, we'll react too slowly or too late. And real museums, art galleries, and the like will get all the money. That's how it works. So I think it is very important that we know what's going on, and we follow that, and we make an impact on decisions. That is only possible if somebody dedicates their time to this. this is why I think, for example, AUM will be important in the future too, as things are developing outside of us. So these are my reflections, and I leave the floor to you to say what is your opinion on the future of our organization. Please. Oh, this is easy. Andrew, you want to say something?
Thank you, Henrik. So it's Andrew Lover from the Black Country Living Museum. I think if I was to answer your question, I think you could say that it was enough to do what we do at the moment. But I think from my perspective, we wouldn't be fulfilling the potential, I think, that exists. And I think I would worry. I think it's very important you've used up there the word relevant. I think for me, I would worry that if we stray from being relevant to our members, I think there's a risk that our membership won't continue to climb and grow, but I think it actually could shrink away if people don't see it as useful to them in their jobs, in their organisations. And I think we surely the people that set this up 50 years ago, Lochric, wanted it to have a continuing and lasting big impact. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that happens, really. So I think we do need to move forward. I think having institutional members is the way to go. I think being able to have some resource of our own control is the way to go, so that we can have more impact. I'm involved in organisations in the UK, and it's the only way that we have an impact, really, is to have some resource and to have some representation and a voice, really, to support us in a practical way, yes, but also I think in a strategic way as well.
Thank you, Andrew. More colleagues? Rhiannon?
Rhiannon Hales from Beamish Museum. I have been thinking very much on the lines that Andrew's just talked about, because I feel that in the UK we have some strong organisations which my director, Andrew, and others are very involved in. But it does count on people taking time and using their resource currently. So the only way to achieve what we need to achieve is to probably introduce something which we have to contribute to. And everyone needs to sign up to that. But I think in terms of what we do as an organisation, that is so valuable. We've this year been involved with some other museums across European open air museums with a development programme for emerging leaders, which has been really successful. So the folks that I've spoken to about that who've participated have learned a lot from that. And that's because of the work that you guys all put in to help to make that an achievable thing. I know there'll be learning outcomes from that. I know you mentioned about trying to get organisations to support their staff members to come along. We at Beamish, we support our staff, I think you do at the Black Country as well, to enable them to participate in this programme, in this conference. And I would hope that other organisations can feel that they can make that part of their own business model. And thinking about a business model going forward for European open air museums, that's something which we should also consider as part of our roles, and that we should support that. I think we are a large voice for open air museums across the world, and without this organisation existing, that would be lost, and that would be an awful shame. It really would. So that sounded a bit like a mantra, but that's how I feel. That's a personal feeling.
mention an interesting experience I've had. In the European Union, we have several general directorates, and one of them is for education and culture. And in the current commission, the director of culture has been a colleague from France, Michel Manier. A very clever, very smart guy, and he, when he started that, he knew absolutely nothing about museums. In a sister organization, the NEMO, the Network of European Museum Organizations, where we are affiliated to, they have invited him 3 times to the General Assemblies to give a message from Europe, from Brussels. And the first time he said that, well, I'm sorry, I'm new to this. He had been in the post for 2 years. I'm new to this, I know very little about museums. So I remember when I went to school, I had to visit museums, he said. And that was not so popular. And he had a few comments during the conference from colleagues. And then the next time he came, he said, I'm proud to say that since we saw each other last time, I visited, I think he said, 10 museums. And then he showed a slide, and they were all art galleries. And 6 of them around Paris. So, and what I think is reasonably fantastic is that when I told him 2 years ago about our project with our small village where we have young refugee families, he didn't believe me. You can't do that in a museum. In which gallery do you build a village? He did not know anything about open-air museums. And as Claire can confirm, and many of you know, Europe is sort of divided when we come to our business. We have our good friends in the association or in EXARC about archaeological open-air museums, but we all, they are spread all over Europe. But we have another cousin, the eco-museums in the Roman Empire. France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, even Greece. They haven't, to my knowledge, any or very few open-air museums as we understand open-air museums. But they had lots of eco-museums since the 1970s onward. And it's sort of the same ideology, but they're working in from their perspective, in the authentic factory, the authentic farm, or whatever. And they keep a farm running without producing anything. They keep a factory running without producing anything, but they show the life as it used to be. And we have no connection with them. This is, of course, very stupid. So, with that in mind, I think it is even more important. It is easier for me to understand that the challenge for us and for the AOM board is, of course, to make people aware that we exist. Because between you and me, but don't tell anybody, the Roman Empire, they are still the empire, making all the decisions in Brussels. So it is important that we spread the word that we exist and what wonderful opportunities we provide for everybody. So the challenges are enormous, but I'm sure that, as Andrew said, the potential and the possibilities for us, the options, they are there. But if we don't do anything, absolutely nothing will happen. So, okay. Any more reflections? Nothing? Or Niklas, that's good because now we have a protest, finally.
Not an ugly question anymore. In one hand, I wrote you, and I already wrote to the board that I am not against this changing and then renewing the association. But I like reforms if you don't lose the benefits of the working before the reform. It means that the secret of the success of this association, I think that is the friendship. It's based upon the friendship. We know each other, we are studying from each other, we are learning from each other, we are teaching each other, we are not concurrent of each other, and that's why we can do it with an open mind and open heart. So that would be nice to keep it. And that's one point. The second point is that I am absolutely agree to have a manager, or general manager, or something like that, an administrative body, or I don't know what. Because as far as I remember from my presidency and the experience of other presidents, we were deciding such nice things that we shall publish newsletter, we shall have list of members, email addresses, and so on. We shall follow the career of our colleagues, and we were failed. We were not successful because we were volunteers, we had many other problems, and so on and so on. So if we decide this reform, and we already done it, I think we have to step slowly. At first, to keep the frame of this association, to keep people, and to push them a little bit to be more active, physically or maybe by internet, to inform each other. And that's, in that case, we need somebody who do it as a profession and who forces us, because that's his or her salary, he's working for it. So that is important. And then we can think about common possibilities like in NEMO, and we are also a member of NEMO. I know the method of them. So it would be not good to be concurrent of each other in the Brussels level. So it's far better to join together in a common project and to get the money than to conquer each other and to fight against each other. It's not good. We have to find this very small but very important steps to keep the frame of this association. We have to know about each other more, and we need somebody to keep it in one hand. Because that was my story, for example, when I was a vice president in 2001, the guy from, you remember, the German guy, Dauskat, was elected as a president, and he was fired afterwards a few months, and I had to replace him. So we have to know each other, we have to protect each other. Sometimes we have to write supporting letters to one another museum for applying money, or to keep or to preserve personalities in the directorate, in his position or her position. So slowly, but very clearly and directly. And what's very important, that is the labor plan or the strategic plan, what to do step by step, year by year. Because if we put together, if we give the money, and we shall have a common budget, may I say, it's an obligation to report about the story of what's happened with this money and how we use this money. So I should like to pay attention of slowly but very direct and very clear stepping forward, and I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Well, I think we fully agree in the board, absolutely. Hilde, want to say something?
Thank you. I feel obliged. I've heard the word Bokrek the last 10 minutes. I've been speaking out for twice. And I think when we look back at the history, and we did so 2 times the last 2 years in Bokrek itself, we noticed that the history of AOM was very closely tied to the history of the museum. And I think I've heard here 3 things that we have found out through our research. And that is, yes, it started first and foremost as a group of friends. And they got near to each other because they had the same passion They were passionate about their museums, they were passionate about their visitors, they had common goals, and they wanted to find out how can we do things otherwise, how can we do things better, can we learn from each other. And afterwards, they saw that by uniting in this way, they started professionalizing. And by professionalizing, their team grew and their community grew. And there came new members, and these members were eager to learn in their turn. And after a while, we noticed also from our research that apart from the friendship and apart from the professionalization, there was also a clear strategy already at that time, 50 years ago. And I heard you say times are changing, and at the same time I thought, well, maybe not that much. And I agree fully, Miklos, in what you say, that it might be wise to put one step at a time, but at the same time to know exactly what we're doing. I can't imagine anyone here who's not writing a strategic plan for the future, so maybe that would be a good idea for the new board too. Thank you.
I'm Martin Luther from Gamby. By taking a step like this, or considering taking a step like this, like opening up, I think it's quite important that we also discuss what the goals should be. Something is to have more forces, but what are they going to be used for? From my experience with Gamby and the cooperation I've been here the last couple of years, what I really have enjoyed a lot is doing projects together with some of you. I've been lucky to do it with Hungary, with Belgium, Sweden, Norway and others. Often it's because there have been some money to do the project, but the money is something. The most important thing is that we could have some common goals. And just in this conference, there's a lot of people say, oh, that could be a good idea, opening up for more ways that people could understand, and how should we do strategies of difficult stories, how should we do better audience research, etc. There are many of these where we could have common goals, and I think for me that would be a main reasoning to if we can have more information about what's going on, so we have possibilities of tapping into each other's projects, and that of course is nice if we can have the EU or others to help us with the money, but the main thing is that we have the same issues to be involving in projects we don't really feel for ourselves, doesn't really matter. And in this group we are here, we have so many common projects where I've learned so much from you when I've participated, and I think that should be one of the main goals we should work on.
No more comments?
Thank you. Jens from Hessen Park in Hessen, Germany. I think the first two contributions to this discussion summed it up for lots of us already. I mean, the strategic aims, the tasks for the board, this might have been a reason why not so many people raised their hands. There was no controversy around it. So if I try to actively look into some controversial issues, which are directed to our collaboration here, I would ask myself two things. Firstly, this platform, the exchange of views of projects, where we profit so much, we heard it now in these three contributions. Yes, we have a lot to do. We meet every second year. So one discussion I would ask the board to do is whether we should perhaps meet annually. The second question, I'm not sure whether I would do it because we all have our national conferences to some extent, most of us at least, but still it's a question I ask myself. And the second is this, organizing these conferences, I did it myself, is a lot of work. So perhaps we can try to consider how to make it less an effort. If I look around, I mean, I'm not a native speaker, my English is not as good as yours, but if I look around, I mean, all our German colleagues, they don't have their translation sets on. I know how costly sorry for our translators if I suggest making you jobless. But still, it's, I think, a considerable factor in organization, also in costs. Perhaps we can discuss to do away, and if not, I ask myself, if I look at the membership pattern as German, I mean, this is a traditional thing. Hilde told us about the story, and on this historical picture we saw a few years back, we saw lots of German museum directors, but still, perhaps it's also anachronistic. You have my personal permission to discuss whether we should abandon this translation into German. So, two potentially controversial issues.
We all like to save money, don't we? But let's see what happens in the future. I think actually it is written in the statutes of our organization that we are bilingual. So
actually, it's French too.
French too, yes. So it needs some work to change it. Okay. Anything else? Over here? You, please. Claire wants to say something, please.
If I may, because I am not a member of your association. Thank you. If you accept it, because I am not a member of your association, but a guest, perhaps to give you just something as a feedback. If I read, so I cannot have no judgment, and probably I am sure that your organization is very valuable and so on. But if I read your name, it's an association of European open-air museums. What I feel is that perhaps I am wrong, I don't know. You represent just a part of Europe. And perhaps some countries from the west and southwest are lacking, and perhaps with other view of not exactly open-air museums, but also eco-museums and so on. I don't know. But if you are a European association, for me, I think that European perspective to approach some question is very important, very important. And also, if I consider the network I am a member, UNCAD, I think that to invite somebody from another sector, from another country, from the question of archaeology this morning, I think it's always ritual to have something like an outsider, something from outside. It's not to disperse and to spoil its energy, but if you have some person who are very listening carefully to what you think and so on, it's an exchange. For example, I had very ritual exchanges with some of you and with your Estonian colleague, not in order to learn or to teach something, but to feedback, to launch the ball and to say what I understand and so on. And just what I say, European perspective, it's very important as matter of heritage, perhaps to have some voice this from outside, from different sectors, and also to perhaps not to feel to be alone as European air museums. You are part of cultural heritage as a whole, and also to be part of an integrated approach, because sometimes if I consider my own sector, cultural heritage, sometimes we discuss together and we suffer to be alone and to be isolated from the rest of the society. And that's why I was talking about the integrated approach. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have to stop the... we have a good number. Okay, Adrian.
Yes.
The mic.
I am very glad that the European perspective has been forwarded now, because our organization origins in this European perspective. It was in the 60s, and the Second World War was not that long away, and many ethnographic museums were very nationalistic in times before. And the men, and it were only men, few women, who came together to found this association, wanted no longer war, wanted no longer nationalist open-air museums, but saw all their museums as parts in a chain of European open-air museums, and also in the European ethnology, they said, well, there is much more in common in ethnology in Europe than people before thought, and it all decided that it was all national or regional, but there is a lot of in common. So I like very much that this European perspective is mentioned today, because it goes back to our origins.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for...
Yes. Give yourself.
And now it's a chance to get even more active. So we have 4 groups, and these are the signs for the groups. The idea is that you just choose 2 of the topics I already mentioned. We have 4 groups, but if we don't have that much time, we can choose 2 topics to go to. So this is marketing and tourism with Josef, and I would like you to take this paper and put it somehow at the door where you're going, so the next group will find you. So 3 groups are upstairs and 1 group is staying here. And it's just half an hour, a short talk on your fears, your challenges, your ideas on the coming 10 years, in this case regarding tourism and marketing. And the other case is Hilde, who is tradition versus super diversity. And then there is Henry with the new business models.
Yes.
And it's Andrew with entrepreneurship. So I suggest Andrew stays here with this group, and the 3 of you go upstairs. And after half an hour, I would be so kind to walk around to say half an hour is over. Then you can choose the second group, and after half an hour, we meet again to see what you have discussed. So I hope it's clear. Yes, it is. You have to put it somewhere so you don't can find it. I think Jaroslav will show you. You show the room.
I will show you the...
Follow Jarek, yes?
I'll stay here.
Andrew is always the lucky one.
Yes.
What's marvelous?
So we're on the same. So I'm Andrew. I run the Black Country Living Museum, and so I've just been asked to kind of chair this session. I think partly also though that my organisation doesn't receive any public subsidy. So we survive through generating all our revenue ourselves. Your English all very good. No. I had a few kind of things to think about, kind of get us thinking. And one of the things when I was asked to chair this session was that it's often entrepreneurial results, or whatever we want to call it, is often painted as being either, it's almost a battle, kind of, we frame the argument often that I hear in the UK as it's a bad thing versus a good thing, really. And the good thing being that you receive lots of public subsidy, that you don't need to worry about or worry about massively where your revenues are coming from, versus something which is maybe very alien and different to that, and that's the kind of spectrum where my museum is. That's often framed as being somehow a bad thing or not something that I want to embrace. So my first kind of point was, does that how it's feel and framed in your own mind and in your own countries? Yeah.
As a newcomer, I don't see this conflict. I mean, as a firm, as a company, as a museum, as a whatever, and as a church, you have to survive in long terms. This is the aim. I think when you're a director or a team or whatever, this is your first goal, to survive in long terms. And then it depends whether you think you are somewhere to get the task from government or somebody else, and you will fulfill this, or say, this is my task as a director. I'm one of the people who always think in the second way. When I'm in a position, it is my task to do so. I have 260 people who work with me. I have an obligation. They have a job in about 5, 10, 20 years to fill, etc. I have a task as a museum, as an museum in the Netherlands, to not only show the history, but also show what this means nowadays for our society. So this is not because the government gives me for our museum, it's about 40% of the money. But it's my obligation to fulfill this task. So it's not a contradiction that I have 5 restaurants and I have 600,000 people who pay 1950, and I don't make a profit, don't make a loss, but try to get even every year. This is my task.
So do other people agree that it's not a contradiction?
Yes, I think so, but what would be interesting to know, if you were in comfortable, from our perspective, position in my museum, and you wouldn't have to be entrepreneurial, what would the difference be? So would you do other projects if you don't have to be entrepreneurial?
Well, you see, I think I often a lot of people come to my museum to ask that question, actually, and I often say to them, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Because I think, partly because I don't think you do well those things that you enjoy. And sometimes I've said to people, if your organisation is demanding really you're having to generate more of your own revenues, then maybe that organisation isn't for you anymore, actually. And it isn't the environment in which you want to work. So that's often my question. But I think there's lots. The reasons I would give are about being independent, about being able to make decisions about your own investment. And if you do, we deliberately try not to just break even, but actually budget for surpluses so that we can reinvest, not just in buildings, but in staff, for example, and try and increase wages as well. And so I think it's about independence, and actually I think, to build on your point, it's not a contradiction. I think it makes you put the visitor at the heart of all your thinking, which I think is a good thing. And I think if it does that, then that's another benefit. Well, I think the essence of being entrepreneurial is that you are operating in a market. That's the essence of it.
I think one way of looking at this would be that maybe you gave only half the answer. So you say, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But it's also that if you want to do it but don't have the funding, you can't do it. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to set up a list of what you want to do. And those things on the list that you can find funding to for, you may do. But if you're more independently funded or government funded, you do all the things on the list. Because of funding, you do all the things, but maybe because of the directives from the government, you can't do that. So, you get my point?
Yeah, I do.
When I started in my museum 10 years back, and I had all these interviews with all the members of the staff. It took me like 3 months, and I was really shocked afterwards because there was no entrepreneurial spirit at all. There was a widespread conviction that culture costs money, culture is important, the society should afford culture, therefore the money should be provided, and that's it. Yeah. That was one stream of thought. Then I had, fortunately, less vital voices that were even complaining about visitors, because they make everything dirty, they don't understand anything at all, and they don't offer quality offerings, you know. So if I look at Germany, where most of the museums are publicly funded, more or less nicely cushioned, we also have these public service contracts for our employees, and there's, I mean, in my situation, I have quite a few people in my staff who are really working hard, but I can't give them any incentive financially. Others who are there for decades, and they just learned how to arrange themselves somehow, and I don't have so many means to yes, exactly. Yeah. And I do not consider me to be arch capitalist or whatever, you know. But there are quite a few things that really annoy me. And if I look at Anko Schmidt, I mean, these are issues we are talking frequently about, you know, also with the other German colleagues. And if I now see the way we managed to go over the past 10 years, with lots of more visitors and a higher degree of own funding, it's good to explain, and from year to year I have the feeling that it's easier to explain to the staff and to all of them, look, it makes us more stable, more independent, less attackable from the outside if we success produces success. Yeah? And slowly but surely this is getting better. And I think especially if we manage to relate entrepreneurial activities with that we actually do. Just a few weeks ago we opened up a workshop for watchmaking. And we have in our premises the Hessian watchmaker school. It's one of 5 places in Germany where you can still have a master degree in a watchmaker craftsperson. And now people can actually come and bring their watch and let it be repaired. And we also have a permanent exhibition and a translocated tower, clockmaker, craft shop. So it's also an issue that reflects our work as a museum, even if permanent exhibitions considered. So now we can have another focus on these issues, and everybody is all for it, and there's no dissent about it.
I think it's absolutely, Sarah from Southern Hill in Australia. I think our business is almost exclusively funded by our earned revenue, and I think that the point that my German colleague makes is very relevant to us because we've been doing that for 49 years, earning our own revenue, but making sure that we're doing that in a way that aligns to our purpose and our mission as an organisation has been key, and to really make sure that our decision-making criteria reinforces that, so that we're overlapping the visitor need, that purpose that we have as a central driver for our museum, and the commercial reality. And that we're sort of talking to our team about those 3 aspects, and also our culture and capabilities. We shouldn't be doing things that don't align to our culture and capabilities either, so the sweet spot for us is where those overlap.
Yes.
I think the cautionary tale I bring to the more government-funded organisations in respect is in Australia, what may happen in other countries and across the world is the government has introduced what's called an efficiency dividend, and all cultural institutes need to reduce their operational funding by 3% a year. And when you have a large-scale organisation with no entrepreneurial spirit, 3% is very difficult to find. So they're actually coming to organisations like ours and saying, how do you do it? And suddenly they're seeking philanthropic funding, they're seeking entrepreneurial business models because they've never done that before, and they can't actually get all of their projects funded anymore. They have a longer list than we do of unfunded projects.
Each museum's obviously similar issues, and I think it's great if you're in a position where you don't have to worry, but there are a lot of museums in the UK that 10 years ago didn't think they had to worry, and that there would be money, and then austerity hit. Very similar to Sovereign Hill. 1 minute, everything's okay. I'm not saying sorry. I mean because we were already invested in what we were doing, in raising our own revenue, being the same, always had to support ourselves. We started off in the early days with some regional funding from local county councils. That was reduced year on year until about 10 years ago. I think we were seeing about 3% of our funding from pocket money, so it always had to be 97%, and now we're 100% self-funding. We had huge numbers of museum staff across the country. We found ourselves out of work, libraries were shut, art galleries have been shut. Entrepreneurialism builds resilience into your business. So even if you think you don't need it, you should still be preparing. You should still, I feel it's, we employ 400 people now in one of the most economically deprived areas of the UK. 400 people who pay their mortgages because we've developed, we've had a business plan, we've built it into our operation. That does mean sometimes making some sacrifices, perhaps. You may not want to do things the way you would really want to do them, building that spirit, that ability to do more than sell rubber balls in your gift shop is really important for your businesses. And I think the world is changing. Just talked about it there, about how this organisation perhaps needs to develop and change. I think museums in general do need to look. I think it's an uncertain world. I think the value sometimes that governments are putting on culture, on heritage, is slipping. So you might think you're okay now, but will you be okay in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, depending on how things go?
Can I prompt another question? And because it made me. You know, we're not a huge museum, and but we about 6 years ago started a national program. So it goes right across England, and to try and support the next generation of museum leaders, and we got a bit of government money to help us, but we put quite a lot of our own money into it, and it was because of skills, really, because I was concerned that the skills weren't there actually if organisations were having to move into generating their own money, so we've been doing that for 6 years. And so I just wanted to ask the question about skills and whether you think that in your organisations you've got the skills to be able to move to a different kind of business model, which is about generating more of your own revenues. Any reflections on that? Go on, Catherine.
Yeah, no. Simple answer.
Yeah.
My reality is still that it's a municipal museum, and the town is funding the museum, and I am not allowed to charge an entrance fee. I am not allowed to charge for educational programs. I am not allowed to because there are people who can't afford it, so we cannot do it. It's very much politics still, and yet we do have the 3% or 2%. It varies over the years, but for the past 15 years it's been cut with 2%, 2.5%, and you get to the point where there's no more cutting to do. I mean, you have to just chop big parts of the museum away. And I've been saying, can we please have maybe an entrance fee for program days, or can we? Nope. So yes, I'm ready, and I think my team is ready. We don't have the skills yet, but we're ready. But the owners are definitely not there yet.
We have the same situation as you mentioned, because my museum is the National Museum in Hungary, are 100% owned by the state, the government, and big bakery, 2, 3 restaurants, hotel, cafeteria, winery, and so many things. It's impossible to run in the frame of public servants situation. But at the same moment, there is a law that for central budgeting institutions forbidden to do such kind of LTDs, say, to be more free in the market, in the cultural market. And after a long fight, 1.5 years ago, I got the special permission to establish a non-profit LTD, 100% owned by the museum itself.
Yeah.
And that's new in Hungary, and it's new in the post-communist territories, absolutely. And now that is a pilot program for the government, and if they are successful, that will be the process, that will be the proposed method for others as well.
Yeah.
And in order to train or to find these skills or to mention, that we have started the course of 120 hours or less in the public service. And if there is a law, it was also a big fight of mine, that is the law in Hungary, that if you want to be a cultural director of a cultural institution, specifically the museum director, you have to attend this course. So that's the one way of distribution, this kind of training and knowledge and so on.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know you have a program, some of the museums, Gunsen and you have for training new leaders, leadership training. Could that be extended to more museums? Could that for example, could the AEO have a package that we could buy into and send people to be trained?
Yes. I mean, I think the answer to that is yes. I think it would need some organisation and structure and some money, but I think that's a great opportunity. And I mean, the course that we run from my museum, the greatest benefit that it's 15 people a year, and one of the greatest benefits that they have is the friendship we plus, yes, but the trading of ideas and the support network. And they all set up, each year sets up a WhatsApp group, and I'm allowed to be a member of each one, and I see all the discourse that goes on and the sharing of ideas and the support, and I think it's exactly the kind of thing that this organisation could do.
Absolutely. The question, trading or sharing?
Say?
Trading or sharing the ideas?
Well, I think both, I think, really.
I think this is, but in the Swedish context today, there's a big debate on the independence of the museum, how to assure the independence. And of course, the museum makes its own money, is much more independent than the museum depends on funding. And since this is an issue in many countries, how to assure museums' independence, I think there's political that is possibility for political support to improve the entrepreneurship of the museum directors. And museum staff. Probably should be a possibility to get funding for a school like that.
But you could also see, couldn't you, as an organisation, that we could be lobbying to create more freedoms for even the national institutions. Because even our national institutions like the V&A and the British Museum, the Science Museum, they are set up, they get huge amounts of government money, but they are set up as independent charities actually, and all the time they're wanting more and more freedoms to be able to run their own businesses. And I think the government is sympathetic to that, and I think we should be making the argument to try and set up the kind of institutions that Miklos has talked about. Yeah.
You're a member of the association, Museums, or the Museums Association.
So I'm the vice chair of the Association of Independent Museums, yes, and its treasurer. And and I'm not a member of the Museums Association. But I am a member also of our National Museum Directors Council as well. And no, I don't see that eye to eye with the Museums Association of the UK. And but we fund places for our staff as a professional body. Yeah.
Just reflect on the comment about becoming entrepreneurial in the government context. I think one of the earliest times that we started with some of our non-entry entrepreneurialism was things like our wheel racks that make wheels, actually sell those wheels to get commission. So it's integrated, it's not putting up a barrier to accessibility, but it's integrated into what we do as a museum, but finding opportunities. We repair people's horse-drawn carriages because it's a rare trade that we have that others don't have. So we've done it to start with in the spirit of what we do and then grown from there. So I think there's opportunities to integrate it into your operations in a way that's in sympathy.
Yeah. I do find that I think that the biggest challenge of talking to the staff about this is that kind of sweet spot, because I think they probably do think that I'm a raving capitalist, but we don't have shareholders. We do make profits, but we don't give dividends, of course, and we talk about it as three things: about being a museum, a charity, and a visitor attraction. So if you can imagine the Venn diagram of those two things, and that sweet spot is right in the middle. Because I'm not interested in making money for the sake of making money. I want to invest it so that the museum fulfills its potential. And if I just wanted to make money, I'd go and rob banks, wouldn't I?
Maybe you remember that was the famous sentence of Peter Louis. We are making money. We are running museum not for making money, creating money for running a better museum.
Yes.
That's a famous sentence of it.
Thomas uses that too.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes.
I think just about everything everyone said resonates with the community. I think we're a national museum. 10 years ago, we used to get the bulk of our funding from the government. We were very happy about that. But over the last 10 years, that percentage hasn't increased. The actual number hasn't increased. But we're encouraged to attract more visitors because we're free entry as well. Then it becomes a trap. You have more people coming through, no more money to deal with. So this point about resilience that you raised, I think is hugely important. It's in all our interests to have independent funding streams so that as that grant increases, we have I think the thing that's struck me most is, yes, at the beginning of that process, internally, we have a lot of resistance, curatorially in particular, that this is not part of our ethos. Money is what other people do. But as time's gone on and we've seen those cuts dig in, more of the ideas of how to make those extra pots of money, little pots of money, have come from all different parts of the museum, because the imperative has been recognised at all levels. But the other thing that's also struck me is some of our most most successful efforts at social engagement in terms of our events programme, where we've got the poorest and most diverse parts of our audience in, have been our charged events, not our free entry, because we've thought so carefully about the audience that we want to attract to come into them, and we've tailored that. And as a result, we actually, it isn't entirely a negative. It's a shame that we have to charge for these things. But it's actually a very successful way of making us think much more carefully about who are we attracting, why are we attracting, what should we be doing. There's money that comes in as well. But it's not that there's an opposition between education, entrepreneurship, and social engagement. There is a sweet spot that can be found. So actually, you raised the point about the expertise. You're both of you guys are just miles ahead of your organisations. I feel like we have a long way to go catching up with the skill set that you've embedded. It takes a long time to do that.
It does, and I think I would I kind of try and summarise it. We have a mantra at the museum that it's not about being known, it's about being wanted. And I think if you start to turn your mind that way, it's almost like saying we probably all have marketing teams, but I bet a lot of us actually have promotional teams who are promoting, but they're not maybe thinking strategically about the programs, about pricing, about who's coming, who's not coming. Lots of strategic thoughts have to go on, and that's marketing. And certainly when I came to the Black Country 10 years ago, we did promotion. So we told people about us. We didn't try and encourage them and try and be wanted, not just known. Can I raise your hands if your museum charges to come in? Okay, so most of us, but not all of us. Because there's a huge debate in the UK about charging and non-charging, and I just wondered, in the last kind of 5 minutes before we have to switch over, does that argument rage in your own countries? And is it seen as a kind of slippery slope to going away and changing the organisation in a way that you wouldn't want? Reflections on that? Yeah.
I think there's some reflections in common about that, because now we have this museum card, and about 70% of the people who come to my museum have this card. This card is about 70 or 80 euros per year, and this the money of this card is museum association runs it, and I think there are about 1.5 million cards now already. So it's a huge success. It grows every year. So the question either we should charge and how much we charge. Our entrance fee is free in Holland, so I can say it's open. But the museum association has also looked into how many people would come more or less when we free, so you can decide a little bit your own. But the museum association, the last few investigations, the last few years say it wouldn't make a huge difference whether it's for free or our charge is 1950. The actual museum is 25 euros.
Yeah.
It's not very cheap.
Right.
But they say it would make much difference. And the tourists, they all pay full. So the Dutch tourists, the tourists in Amsterdam, etc., pay a lot of visitors. So they make the price for the Dutch visitor cheaper because most people who visit more than 3-4 times the museum, they have this card.
Other reflections about charging, not charging?
I think it's an irony that in London you pay to go to a cathedral but not to a museum.
Yeah.
That's right. There is a legal law there.
I try to pray, not to pay.
Yes. Yes. Other thoughts on that? I mean, I find it very odd really because a lot of the national museums in London, you'll know, charge for temporary or special exhibitions.
Yeah.
They will charge, you know, if it's a David Bowie exhibition or something, they might charge £25, 30 euros to get in. So I almost think they've set the precedent really, they've gone over that, and yet some would, you know, say they would die in a ditch before they would allow charges to be introduced for museums. But it's one way of being able to counter the reduction in funding if they could do that. But it's a huge debate really. But at the moment, we've got quite good relationships with central government, and we are trying to get the government to at least review whether the national museums in the UK should continue to be free, because it costs the UK taxpayer about £500 million a year to keep them free. And actually, secretly, lots of the museum directors would be quite happy to charge, actually, and want to charge. But I think it's about independence. Okay, anything else anybody wants to say on this topic? No.
Can I just say one thing about the question about free entry? When it first came up, it was there was a lot in the press about this was access for all.
Yeah.
And it was a tool for inclusion. And I haven't seen many studies that actually demonstrated that it actually led to it. It led to more visits.
Yeah.
You see,
such studies have been done in Sweden because some years ago the government decided that the national museums were to be free. They weren't. I mean, they did charge, but there was a decision, a political decision, populistic one, to sort of, it's free. And there is a question of quality because most of them are situated in Stockholm or other big cities, so for whom? But there have been some people have looked into that and come to that conclusion that it's just more visitors is like more same visitors.
And they go for a shorter period of time. Yeah.
It's not big.
In Holland, some museums started experimenting with free charge on Monday, and when they started this, people came. And now, after 3-4 years, the effect is gone. So
we charge a lot. We try and Beamish, you charge a bit more than us, I think, a little bit, and I think Rich and I try and fight about who's the most expensive. But we're similarly in some of the most deprived areas of the UK around my museum, and yet our attendance has gone up and up and up. And again, it's back to that thing about value and being wanted, not just known, really. And I think I want to charge, actually. Even if I could be free, I would want to charge, because I think it puts the visitor in charge, actually.
Speak of Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, so it has. So Peaky Blinders, if you watch Netflix or something, it's a very violent television series which seems to have got a cult following all over the world, and they film this at the museum. museum. And yes, it's allowed us to do lots of events and given us a terrible reputation.
I think just when they were filming several months ago, just because they were filming. So
Thank you very much. I think we need to swap. And I think it makes our jobs more interesting, and the board's jobs much more interesting. Yeah. No.
I have no responsibility here.
Thank you for the session.
What's that? Yeah. Relax, yeah. This is a nice theatre. It is. Yeah.
Good sound.
Yeah, it is. Nice facility.
I can't come and give you any statement. Got it. What recorded anything from my director.
Oh, okay.
I'm free. I will cooperate with this camera phone company.
This what? Oh yeah. Well, I'd much prefer it if it was all part of the museum actually, and I have occasionally said to them, "Would you like to form part?" But they were there first, and they're very much of a campaign. They were actually to open up the canals originally because they'd all just been filled in and neglected, and they just about survived. But I would much prefer it all one. Yeah. So if we're banging on the door of time. Oh well, that's. Yeah. you joining us here? No? That wasn't an instruction. Invitation. Oh, look, well, shall we make a start? Because we're haven't got a huge amount of time. So I'm Andrew. I look after the Black Country Living Museum in the UK, and I will only speak, I'm afraid, English, not Swedish or German, and so I hope that's okay. So I've asked to kind of chair this discussion and get some thoughts around the topic of being entrepreneurial. And I just wanted to start with, it struck me that often, certainly in the UK, the whole discussion about becoming more entrepreneurial is framed in the way of, well, that's bad. And the way we are at the moment of having lots of government money and maybe being free as well, free admission, that's good. And the whole argument is framed in that kind of good versus bad way. And I just wanted to, so my first question about this, is that how it's framed in maybe your own institution or your own country?
I think that has changed in Denmark. It used to be good things, we lost public finance, independence, economically. But I think we realized that public finance will increase. We always have to us at the moment and it will continue. So we are working on getting more economically. So it's a good thing. And it also gives another kind of freedom, because some museum maybe has less freedom with public finance. You know what we call the arm distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the
arm's
government
length.
arm's length principles.
Yeah.
It's not that long anymore, so many museum wants more independence.
Yeah. Other reflections about how the debate is framed? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wonder also what Black Country Museum, why this discussion went the way that it should be bad getting money from somebody, from the government or something like that. There was a tendency to hear that this is bad, this is good.
Yeah.
And I would have the idea that if you get money, it's generally good. If you don't get enough, you have to earn some more. And that is the case. I'm also from Denmark.
Well, I think it's often framed that way because for many people coming into museums, it's not what they came into museums to do or to be worried about, and I think also because there's a worry that it will shift you in a certain direction, you know, away from being an educational museum, very pure, to being a visitor attraction, which for some people is seen as a bad thing, and so that's why I think it's framed that way.
But my point was almost the opposite. It seemed that it was a virtue to be entrepreneurial and without public money. And well, isn't that? I can't see the point.
Oh well, I think some of it is because it's almost regarded like a free health service. Some would regard it in that way. That they would feel that, you know, the health service should be free at the point of contact, and therefore museums should be, and they should be funded by the taxpayer, and that we shouldn't have to worry about earning our own money and create a culture in an organisation some people don't want, and that's why you get this kind of good and bad. Other reflections, is it painted in this way in your own institutions or countries? Yes, go on.
So I come from America where entrepreneurship is not a bad word. Socialism is a bad word.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a cultural thing in terms of entrepreneurship in the business sector, so we find, but in the not-for-profit sector, we don't make a profit. We're called not-for-profit.
Yeah.
And so we seek our money from other places, mainly from governments, from charities, etc., or the government, possibly the state. But the point being is, I think, because of the over-commercialization of the kind of business structure, heritage museums don't want to be associated with that because it has a taint of Disney and cheapening of the educational mission.
Yeah. Good.
I was just going to say, I'm a community participation worker, so I come from previous jobs. I've kind of come from what's sometimes seen as the fuzzy side of things. But I think increasingly, I think we all have to recognise that you need to look broader than that. And it's about kind of collaborative opportunities, and I don't see it as that they have to be separate, so that you can have kind of a business side and a learning and a community side, but there's also opportunities to kind of cross over, and I think we are, as you described, but I think it's they're not working against each other. We're all working towards the success of the museum and how that's done, because it also enables the embedding of things like learning and community programs into the business model of the museum. So without it being reliant on project or external funding or something like that.
So I also get a lot of people come to see us because we fund ourselves entirely from our own trading. Revenue-wise, I don't generate enough surpluses, and we're proud to create surpluses. Actually, I would insert the word "we're not for private profit," really. So I think the word profit, and I said this publicly in the UK a few weeks ago. What's wrong with profit? You know, but I get, so we do get a lot of people come to us to see how we do it and so on. And I often, one of my first questions back to people who come to see us is just, I say, do you want to do it? Or do you feel like you're being kind of forced into a way of working and thinking that you don't really feel that comfortable with? And that actually, if your organisation is definitely moving in this way, ask yourself whether you're still in the right kind of organisation. And because I do feel that you will be good at it if you want to do it and you enjoy it and see the benefits rather than fighting against it. Really. Or compromising, yeah. So I think Hilda also described, and we've certainly moved to this, the visioning of it in terms of a Venn diagram of three things. So museum, so you know, essentially about having a collection and using a collection and people's stories. So that's one circle of the Venn diagram. And then for us in the UK, about being a charity. So that is very much about public benefits, the educational outcomes. But then the other one for us is about being a visitor attraction, and very openly saying we're a visitor attraction. And then we try and hit that sweet spot in the middle, really. And we see no compromise in that, actually. And I'm sure that I'm often just, people must just think I'm a raving capitalist or something. But actually I'm not interested in just making money for money's sake. And that being able to make money allows us to reinvest in staff and the assets and so forth. And so my next question is about, have you detected in your organisations a kind of change in the vision to be more than describing yourselves as just a museum but other things? Does that resonate at all? Yeah. Neil?
You probably heard Thomas say this. We don't have a museum to earn money. We earn money to make a better museum.
Yeah.
That's one of the key words in innovation. And we more and more develop in that direction. But sometimes I also experience with private funding that there's very much respect for this founder, company foundation, which gives millions, and you always have to ask to check out how they're comfortable with what they're doing, do we do it on time, do we do it exactly as we promised. So I wouldn't say compromise, but sometimes we do have the deadline what they would like.
Yeah. So for you guys, it is the Maersk Foundation, is that right?
Yeah, that's the biggest one.
Yeah. Does that resonate with anyone else?
Oh yeah.
Go on, say a bit more.
Our donors are huge. We have a big development group, I think 12 to 16 people, and all their only job is to go out and find money.
Oh wow.
And we are very much beholden to our donors. We bring them on side, we do everything for them, they sit on the board, and if they have a problem with something that's happening, immediately has to be addressed. Now again, it's not about compromise, but it's about
So my other little question was around that if there's a move towards a different business model that's got more mixed streams of income, whether you feel that there are the right skills in your organisations to deliver that, and thoughts on that? And could you see that you might have to bring on board different skills into the organisation to make it thrive in this way?
We've discussed many times in our executive group that we really need a person dedicated to sales. We don't have that anymore. It's between different departments, and of course we do a lot of sales, but it's not dedicated to one person and one branch of the organization. It should be. I think we're ready for it now, but in a few years.
So this was about sales, was it?
Sales, but also development, making new kinds of things to sell to companies or to schools, but still a piece of sale.
So there was Katerina, who was here in the previous group, wondered about whether, because there's been a bit of a pilot between 5 museums, including ours, where we've had 2 people from each museum, and they've visited each other, and they've traded ideas, and they've sometimes been set a challenge by the director of that particular museum. And so Katerina wondered whether actually the membership would think that would be a good thing to roll out and to do much more of. Would that be welcome, do you think? It would take more time, certainly an investment of time, but do you think that would be well to help people's skills and sharing and friendships as well? What do you think?
Counseling, have kind of counsel in the organization.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd use the word counselling, but support, I think. Yeah. Okay.
I think at first everybody has a problem. The funding, government, public funding will not go up, not in the money.
Right.
And I also need to stress that we're totally public funded, but we also earn just as much money on our own aside. Without we went from public to private. And since then, that's 2 years ago, and since then the general approach has been earn more money. And I'm a historian and an archaeologist. Okay,
I think there's quite a blind spot for organisations to think that people can suddenly become entrepreneurial and have what I would call business disciplines. I think often, possibly one of the most important would be a sense of urgency and shift. I mean, I would describe being entrepreneurial as simply operating in a market, really. And so I think there is, it goes unchallenged a little bit that you can suddenly make your organisation entrepreneurial without actually tackling skills in the right and the experience. And certainly we had that view in the UK. So we run my organisation isn't that big. We're not a national museum, but we took it upon ourselves 6 years ago, because I could see that the skills question was a real issue. So we run a program every year for 15 people. They're with us for a whole year, and it's all about the kind of next generation of museum leaders, really. And we decided to do it because we thought ours was a good business model from which people could learn, maybe run away from, I don't know. But now it's been going for 6 years, and people get an awful lot out of it. But actually, one of the biggest things that get out of it is being together. And so a demonstration of that is that each year they all set up WhatsApp groups, and they allow me to be part of them, and I see all the traffic between them, and the support they give, and the questions they ask, and they've created a big network for themselves. And I think we miss an opportunity a little bit here to do that. So the other thing in terms of the skills, I think when I came to my organisation, just as one little example of the skills was that we would probably all say, wouldn't we, that we've got marketing departments, whereas what I inherited was a promotional department. So they understood about promotion and about telling people about us, but they didn't really understand about marketing and messages and channels of communication. And so we have a mantra at the museum about saying it's not about being known, it's about being wanted. And I think it's a very powerful little phrase to have in your mind, but it was just a demonstration to me that we lacked the skills, particularly, and it's what you think about in sales, because it's a big strategic issue, is marketing if it's done properly and to its full impact. And it's one of the big skills I think that many places miss if they want to be closer to a market and work in a market. Yes.
Of course, the best business model we can ever make is just to sell more tickets. It really gives.
Yes, so that
good economy just to sell tickets. It's the best business model we have. So we just if we keep the visitor numbers high, we have a good business.
Well, it's one of the main drivers, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But what can you?
How many of your organisations are free to come in? Great. So is there
a
yeah, so there's a big debate in the UK about whether, about charging museums and free museums, and I wondered whether that debate goes on in your own countries or whether it rages in your own organisations, and whether there's any reflections on that.
So too much of the revenue for our museum.
Yeah.
To let anybody talks about the vehicle. It's our main source of income that's independent. The rest is state sponsored, but like most museums, we get a little less every year. So we got a very strong political message that we need to find our own money. So we're in the process of getting where you're talking about, from thinking like a traditional museum to more thinking markets.
Are you worried that because you charge, you're disadvantaging people who maybe have got lower incomes? Does that debate go on?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Any reflections on that?
We've had some criticisms in the media because low-income families think it's too expensive to visit us, and we've worked with our local community to get special arrangements for low-income families.
Yes, concessions.
Yes, concessions.
Yeah.
It's a way to not get the stick.
Yeah. So the great irony in the UK was that when all our national museums went free, it was heralded because it would remove a barrier to people on lower incomes, etc. And it hasn't been the case. So the same people are coming, better educated, wealthier, but they're coming more frequently, yes, but they're coming often for shorter periods of time. And certainly in my museum, you know, it operates in one of the most deprived areas in the whole of the UK. It's something like the top 4% for what we would call deprivation. And so income is not high, levels of educational attainment are low, unemployment is relatively high, and yet, and we charge nearly 20 euros to come in, and yet visitor attendance has gone up and up and up. And I think it comes back to that point about being wanted and creating value, and something that has become a normal part of people's lives, and that they feel is a good investment, really. Because I'm always aware it's a trade, really, and they're giving up money, so they value me more than their money, because they want to exchange it. And yeah. Any other reflections on this kind of topic?
We have a community rate at the museum that we manage. So groups that we're working with on projects or developments can access that rate, which enables, particularly we work region-wide, so it enables perhaps communities that haven't been in a while to access the museum at a lower rate. And what we find through that in working in different communities is sometimes the uptake is really high, and sometimes it's not, because, as you say, people have already chosen to make that investment. And I think that idea of being wanted, but also being, you know, Beamish doesn't exist without the support of people in the region, and it's important that we are seen out in the region doing things, and I think that kind of helps with that. I mean, people want to come in because they see their stories in their buildings at the museum, so it's kind of finding that balance. And I think what you were saying about visitor numbers, kind of, you need your visitor numbers to go up, obviously, to kind of increase revenue coming in. But I think museums and the types of museums we have all different kinds of stakeholders, and sometimes it can be someone on a project who, you know, or a response in a time that can become kind of quite crucial in terms of advocating for your museum or advocating for other people to visit. Yeah. And the community rate ticket does enable where, because we were similarly, you know, at first payment, we're quite an expensive place to visit. If you can come back, you can come back throughout the year, and our programme provides opportunities so that if you do come back, you are seeing different things or different stories highlighted, and I think that helps as well.
Yeah. My final note, because we're into free time in a minute, is that we're doing a capital project at the moment, and we are, you know, I don't create enough surplus to be able to go to the bank to be able to borrow £25 million, million euro, whatever we're going to spend. But very interestingly, we secured nearly £10 million directly from the UK government because they saw it as an investment in a thriving organisation that had sustainability and people at its centre, and it wasn't seen as subsidy, it was seen as investment in a thriving business. And we'd never experienced that before from a public sector investor. Were you going to say something?
Well, would you have accepted the 10 million if it was a subsidy?
Oh, yeah.
That's what
I'll take it.
It was what I was going to talk about.
I described it as investment, but yeah.
But if I recall rightly, you're quite in the center of a population of 20 million people.
There's 10 million within 90 minutes of us.
Okay, 10 million.
Yeah.
And we live in a city with 200,000 inhabitants, and we want to see maybe a quarter of the museum every year, maybe half of the population.
Yeah.
That is a different situation, because you can actually have the well-educated only, and still have a lot of people coming in, and the well-learning people.
Yeah, although...
Do you get the less privileged
Totally, yeah. It's about 50-50. If you measured it on those very, very simplistic terms, it's about 50-50, yes. And we don't get tourists. We're not like you
Only
guys.
from Denmark sometimes.
Yeah, occasionally, although we try and stop that. So, we have in that respect, we have a very different model than Beamish that does get tourists.
Yeah.
And we just don't get tourists, we get what we would call resident day visitors. And, Well, we're going to have to wrap there because we've reached past. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Yeah, okay.